The Cowboys almost pulled off one of the biggest trades of the entire season, and nobody knew about it until now. And what I'm about to tell you changes everything about how we should be thinking about this offseason. So before we dive into all of it, make sure you hit that subscribe button, because here at Cowboys Live News, we break down every single update the moment it drops, and you do not want to miss what's coming next for this team. Alright, let's get straight into it because this is massive. According to a recent report from League Insiders, the Dallas Cowboys were in the final stages of completing a trade for Miami Dolphins safety Minka Fitzpatrick right before the trade deadline, and I mean, they were right there. This thing was basically done. But here's where it gets crazy. The deal fell apart because Dallas pivoted to the Quinnen Williams trade with the Jets instead. Now think about that for a second. The Cowboys had to make a choice between two impact players, and they went with the defensive tackle, which means Fitzpatrick was left on the table. But guess what? That door might be swinging wide open again, and the Cowboys are absolutely a team to watch on this front, whether it comes through a trade or potentially even a release situation with Miami. And the wild part is this isn't even the first time Dallas has had their eyes on Fitzpatrick. If you really want to go back, there were reports connecting the Cowboys to him all the way back in 2019. This front office has always loved this guy, and honestly, can you blame them? He's elite. He fits exactly what this defense needs. But here's what nobody is talking about right now. The versatility that Fitzpatrick brings to the table is absolutely perfect for what defensive coordinator Christian Parker wants to do with that nickel corner role. See, Fitzpatrick isn't just a safety, he's a chess piece. Last season, he actually played more snaps in the slot than any other position on the defense. He can line up as a free safety, he can play strong safety, he can drop into that box role and play physical downhill football, he can slide out wide and match up in man coverage, and he can lock down that nickel spot with the best of them. That kind of flexibility is rare in this league, and it's exactly what Dallas is missing right now. Now, let's be real about where Fitzpatrick is at in his career, because I'm not going to sit here and tell you he's the same guy who was winning Defensive Player of the Year conversations back in 2022. Those days are probably behind him, but what he still brings to the table is extremely valuable. 6 pass breakups last year, an interception, solid coverage numbers even on a Dolphins defense that struggled overall. His completion percentage allowed was respectable, and the yards he gave up were minimal because so much of his work came in the short area of the field where you're going to give up catches, but you're not giving up chunk plays. That's what you want from your nickel defender. He's still a quality starter in this league, and he's still only turning 30 in November. For a Cowboys secondary that desperately needs a stabilizing presence, this could be the move that changes everything. But here's where it gets tricky, and this is important for every Cowboys fan to understand. If this happens through a trade, Dallas is going to have to give something up, and they don't exactly have a treasure chest of draft picks to work with right now. The Cowboys have their own 4th rounder, which might be a little too rich for some people's taste. They've got a 5th round pick, a projected compensatory pick in the 6th round, and a 7th rounder coming from the Chiefs. That's it. Outside of those early first round selections, the cupboard is pretty bare, so flipping a day 3 pick for Fitzpatrick isn't necessarily a bad outcome. In fact, I'd argue it's a pretty solid return for a proven playmaker at a position of major need, but you have to weigh the cost against your overall draft strategy. The ideal scenario for Dallas is honestly that Miami can't find a trade partner and ends up releasing him. We've seen this before where teams start leaking trade discussions to the media, and a lot of times that means the conversations aren't going the way they want them to go. They're trying to drum up interest. If Fitzpatrick hits the open market, Dallas could sign him to a new deal without giving up any draft capital, and that would be a huge win. Now let me paint the picture of why this matters so much for the secondary. Right now, your nickel corner options are Don Bland, Reddy Stewart, and maybe Maris Bell. If you really want to stretch the definition, that's not exactly a murderer's row of talent at one of the most important positions in modern NFL defenses. The nickel corner is on the field for the majority of snaps in today's pass-happy league, and if you don't have a guy you trust there, offensive coordinators are going to attack that spot relentlessly. Adding Fitzpatrick immediately solves that problem. He's either the best or second best player in your secondary the moment he walks through the door, and that's not even close. There's a massive tier gap between him and the other options on the roster right now. And here's the other thing that makes this so intriguing. If the Cowboys believe Don Bland can handle the nickel role, that actually opens up more possibilities. You could then go add an outside corner or bring in another piece somewhere else. But if they don't think Bland can do it, then your options become way more limited and you're almost forced to address nickel in the first round of the draft or through a big money free agent signing. Fitzpatrick would give you breathing room, he'd give you flexibility, he'd give you a proven veteran who has done it at the highest level. Is that worth a mid-round pick? I think so. What do you think? Would you pull the trigger on this trade? Let me know in the comments because I genuinely want to hear where Cowboys Nation stands on this one. Now, if the Cowboys can't land Fitzpatrick, whether through trade or free agency, there's another name that should have every Dallas fan extremely excited, and he's about to go through the NFL Combine. Caleb Downs out of Ohio State by way of Alabama might be the single most impactful defensive player in this entire draft class, and he fits the Cowboys like a glove. Let me tell you why this kid is special. He was a true freshman starter at Alabama. Do you understand how rare that is? Nick Saban doesn't hand starting jobs to freshmen. That program is loaded with five-star talent at every position. And Saban looked at Downs and said, yeah, he's the guy. In fact, Saban compared him to Minka Fitzpatrick when Downs was just a month into his starting career. That's the highest praise you can possibly get from one of the greatest coaches in college football history. And when you watch the tape, you see exactly why. Downs can do everything. He's played in the box as an enforcer type. He's played deep as a true free safety. He's lined up in the slot and covered receivers man to man. The versatility is off the charts, and it matches up perfectly with what Christian Parker said he wants from his nickel corner position. A guy who can wear multiple hats, a guy who can disguise coverages, a guy who can be moved around to create confusion for opposing quarterbacks. That's Caleb Downs. Now I'm going to be honest with you because that's what we do here. I'm not sure Downs falls to the Cowboys at pick 12. Everything I just said about him is exactly why another team in the top half of the draft should just take him. He's that good. He's a plug-and-play starter from day one with Pro Bowl upside. But if he does fall, or if Dallas sees him sliding and decides to get aggressive, this could be the dream scenario. Would you trade up for him? That's the million-dollar question. Moving up to 6 or 4 or even 8 if he slides would cost significant draft capital, and the Cowboys already have a bunch of holes to fill. You can't sell out for one player when you need starters at multiple positions. But Downs is the type of prospect that can be a cornerstone piece for years to come. Maybe there's a creative way to do it where you package picks and get something back in return, but those deals are hard to pull off. The math has to work for both sides. My gut tells me Dallas should be aggressive if Downs is there at 8 or 9. That's close enough where the cost to move up wouldn't be crippling, but if he's gone by 6, you probably have to let it go and pivot to other options. And speaking of other options, let's talk about free agency, because there are some legitimate names out there who could fill this nickel corner void. The first guy that jumps out to me is Alontae Taylor from the Saints. This is the big splash signing if the Cowboys want to make a statement. Taylor played primarily in the slot this past season, and honestly, I thought he looked better inside than he ever did on the outside. He's been a little inconsistent over his career, some hot streaks and some cold ones, but the physical tools are all there. Here's an interesting connection too. Taylor played for Derek Ansley at Tennessee. Ansley is now on the Cowboys staff. That kind of familiarity matters when you're building a defense. Taylor knows the coaching style, he knows the expectations, and that can speed up the transition. He's also got better size than what Dallas has typically looked for at that position, which could signal a philosophical shift in how they want to defend the middle of the field. The problem is Taylor is probably going to cost somewhere in the neighborhood of $11 to $15 million per year. That's real money, that's a commitment, and we all know how the Cowboys have operated when it comes to spending in free agency. Let's just say it hasn't exactly been aggressive, but trades are a different story. The front office has shown they're willing to take on bigger contracts when it comes through a trade, so maybe there's a path there with New Orleans. Another name I really like is Roger McCreary. I've been a fan of this guy going back to his Auburn days. He's got great instincts, he's physical, and he fits that nickel corner mold really well. The knock on him has always been his arm length, which teams obsess over. But honestly, if you watch him play, you see a guy who overcomes that with technique and positioning. He had a solid stretch run with the Rams last year in a smaller role, and he'd come way cheaper than Taylor. If the Cowboys want to fill the position without breaking the bank, McCreary makes a lot of sense. Then there's D. Alford, who quietly put together a really nice season. His completion percentage allowed was a bit higher than you'd want, and he gave up some yards, but the splash plays were there. Multiple pass breakups, multiple interceptions, the kind of ball production that shows up on the stat sheet. He's not going to cost a ton either, which again fits the Cowboys' spending profile. Not the sexiest name, but a solid veteran who can contribute. And I haven't even mentioned the draft options beyond Caleb Downs. Avion Terrell out of Clemson is an interesting one. He's the younger brother of A.J. Terrell, and while he played mostly outside corner for the Tigers, there are some teams that see him projecting to the nickel at the next level. He's a willing tackler with 8 forced fumbles over the last 2 seasons, which is insane production for a corner. That kind of physicality translates to the slot where you're asked to fit the run and make plays in the box. He's got ball skills too, with a bunch of pass breakups on his resume. I wouldn't be shocked if Dallas looked at him on day 2 as a developmental piece who could eventually take over that nickel role. Alright, let's zoom out and talk about what all of this means for the Cowboys moving forward, because this isn't just about one position. The secondary has been a problem for years now. You can point to the pass rush, you can point to the linebackers, but the back end of this defense has been getting torched, and it's costing games. Fixing the nickel corner spot is step 1. Whether it's Fitzpatrick through a trade, Caleb Downs in the draft, a free agent like Taylor or McCreary, or even a development pick like Avion Terrell, the Cowboys have to get this right. The NFL is a passing league. Teams are going to attack your weakest link in coverage over and over again until you prove you can stop it. Right now, Dallas hasn't proven anything, but here's why I'm actually feeling optimistic. The options are there. The front office has shown they're willing to be aggressive when the right opportunity presents itself. They almost landed Fitzpatrick at the deadline. They pulled off the Quinnen Williams trade. They're not sitting on their hands hoping things work out. There's a plan here, even if we can't see all the details yet. My prediction is that Dallas ends up addressing this position through multiple avenues. You bring in a veteran like Fitzpatrick or one of those free agents to start right away. You draft someone like Caleb Downs or Avion Terrell to develop behind them, and suddenly you've got depth and competition at a spot that was a black hole last year. That's how you build a contender. That's how you go from pretender to legitimate Super Bowl threat, and honestly, that's what this offseason has to be about for the Cowboys. No more excuses, no more close but not quite. The window is open, the pieces are available, and it's time to go get them. So let me ask you one more time, Cowboys Nation. What's the move? Do you trade for Fitzpatrick and give up the draft capital? Do you swing big in free agency for Alontae Taylor? Do you pray Caleb Downs falls to 12 and thank the football gods if he does? Or do you have another plan entirely that I didn't even mention? Drop your answer in the comments because I read every single one and I want to know what you're thinking. And if you made it this far in the video, do me a favor and smash that subscribe button if you haven't already. We're building something special here at Cowboys Live News, and every single subscriber helps us keep bringing you the best Cowboys coverage on YouTube. This team is at a crossroads, and the decisions made in the next few months are going to determine whether 2025 is a breakthrough year or another disappointment. I believe they're going to get it right. I believe the nickel corner spot is going to be a strength by the time September rolls around, but we'll see. That's the fun of it. That's why we watch. That's why we obsess over every rumor and report and combined workout, because anything can happen. And when you're a Cowboys fan, you know that better than anybody. Stay locked in, stay loud, and I'll see you in the next one.